couple of questions that I had going into this was, since these companies are bringing people into the roles and having groups, you guys talked about how you have, what are they, ERGs, or what are they at your job?
We call ours
BRGs.
BRGs.
Yeah, BRGs.
Okay. Just attempting to make people feel more comfortable. Some of the questions that came to mind are, when we're bringing diversity training to employees within the organization, are people aware that there need to be different strategies to address diversity, equity, and inclusion for different employees? Like, a white man's training should be different than my training, because I am a Black person, and if you ask who is the oppressed versus the oppressor, he needs to learn something different than I need to be learning. So just based off of that, have you guys seen there being different trainings, and how is it being presented without it seeming like, oh, it's segregated, like this is the whites only training? Sorry. But like, or is it one big training, or it's like breakout sessions? Like, how do you even think that's possible to have, a split training for folks, and even not even just racial, but generational as well? Because a white person our age versus someone who is, our senior by 2-3 decades, completely different.
Right.
Correct.
So what have you guys been seeing within your organizations as far as the training is going? Or have you been, tapped in a bit? Do you think that it's beneficial? Is there anything that you feel like you could add to it by speaking to your superiors or whoever is running those groups that would make it something that's digestible for everyone, but knowing that it can't be something blanket? Like, it can't be a menu with 2 items on it. It has to be, curated towards everyone's quote diet, so to speak.
Right.
So I think I haven't necessarily seen any separate trainings, but I think that we have done a variety of training so that it could be more palatable for different audiences. So even prior to this, we have we do a lot. Like, we had an implicit bias training that I went to last year. And it was great. They brought someone in from a company, I can't remember the name of it, but a company out in Cali. They brought them in, and she was amazing. And she went through all of these things about how implicit bias exists, even just, coming into the room and seeing her and hearing where she's from. How do we take that in initially, and how everyone really has implicit bias? It's really just a matter of how we treat people due to those implicit biases. So I think those are good, but I think a lot of times, depending which BRG hosts the session, it determines who shows up. So that particular session was hosted or sponsored by NextGen. So NextGen is the younger generation who's coming up through the corporate America ranks. A lot of times when they host events, you'll see a mixed bag of people from different minority groups and also even different age groups. Whereas when the African American Business Resource Group puts things on, you typically will only see Black people show up. So one of the efforts that we've tried to do going forward is, instead of it just coming out of maybe the East Asian group or the African American group or Latinos in leadership group, there's a minorities in leadership umbrella that all of the minority groups roll into.
Okay.
So to get a more broad variety of people and not just say, hey, everyone should be taking this, minorities in leadership will push it out so that people don't feel like it's just for this target audience. Because I do feel like a lot of times when, for instance, something comes out of even women in leadership, for some reason, men feel like they can't come, even though business resource groups are not just for the demographic of people that it's titled for. It's for that group, of course, to be heard and seen, but more so, it's for other people to be able to come and take in that information too. But I think a lot of people people like them,
Yeah.
right? So they're going to show up for things that resonate with them. I think if we can get people of the mindset that you have to show up for other people too, you might learn something. I think that that would be more beneficial. But I will say, from the perspective of sometimes when the minorities in leadership group puts things on, like when they host, things become very people of color as opposed to
Yeah, the
black
black
people.
people. And I
So
was going to talk
that
about
can
that
be
too.
problematic too. And I think that that is okay, but to an extent. So for instance, last year we had a Black History Month event. I heard people of color more than I heard black people.
Right.
This is not the time for people of color.
Right.
This is a black event about black people. This is our month. Let's stay focused and stick to the topic. So I know one of our efforts this year, our African American Business Resource Group wants to make sure that we do our own thing for Black History Month because we don't want it to get diluted the way that it was prior.
Okay. I got a question.
So I think it's a mixed bag. I think that we are trying to be agile in hosting these sessions so that we can try to make it, like I said, palatable for multiple groups because it's different just depending on where it's coming out of.
So with that, if you guys do your own event, are you already in the mindset that it will be a majority of just black people in the audience for it or in attendance for it?
Yeah. It probably will be. I mean,
so you said that there'll be umbrellas, but is there ever a collaboration, like just Next Gen and African American, like both names at like, on the marquee, prominent, so to be?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we've been also trying to do that too. I think things have been slowed down a bit because of COVID. Like we're all used to hosting these events in person, so we're kind of getting our feet back under us as far as like virtual. That's our flair.
Do you ever notice how it's like almost the exact shade of green too? It's
I ran into them at an event for my organization. I happened to have on green. And they were like, no, I don't know y'all. I just like green.
They work in the AKA sometimes.
Y'all gonna stop talking about fraternities. Y'all have to stop talking about fraternities and sororities the way y'all talking about.
I'm just saying, with the colors. I'm like, they roll deep.
They do roll deep.
I mean, everybody, listen, they had their shade on and they was looking. I was like, I do not work for y'all. I'm trying to find her. Excuse me. Going to get out my dang on way.
I'm telling you, if you wear green, we automatically assume you part of the gang.
But who knows? Because we'll get to that later. I might just change industries and be gang. For real. I seen the position. Christ.
But yes.
Okay.
So I think it's a mixed bag for us. We're working on it.
Understood. How about you, Jen?
So with our BRG, it was interesting because apparently they had it for the longest time. I didn't know anything about it until the talk and the hashtag of a diversity inclusion kept being sent out in our CEO's emails biweekly. And so I was like, let's check it out. And literally when I first saw the group, we had maybe about 50 people in it. And it was only because it was weird. It was like, you can only be a part of it if you were in certain departments, not the whole entire company. And then now, since we have, they've hired like a diversity inclusion consulting firm stuff coming in. Now they've opened it up company wide. And it was interesting when they did that, everyone flocked to it. It didn't matter if they were Black, they were white, they were Asian. Everybody jumped on board. So it went from like maybe 50, 60 to now it was, at that point, it was like almost over 1,000. And then I think people are now getting tired of hearing diversity inclusion biweekly from our CEO, that now you start to see everyone that really was just like, why are you even here? But okay, welcome. They're trilling off and no longer being part of the email chain. So I just think it's interesting. They have been beating diversity inclusion over our head, which is just like, why didn't we have this to begin with? But the good thing is, now we are trying to be a little more collaborative with different parts of the business. I know when I first joined, they asked you what you were interested in. And I just started checking off anything. Like, truthfully, I just want to be a part of it.
Right.
you know, because again, I've said this before, I'm the only African American person in my department. So I just like, just somebody look like me, please talk to me, help me out, figure out how to navigate this company because I can't. So finding the group, and somehow I ended up in the mental health and the physical health category committee, and I was just like, oh, okay. Which is funny because I was also part of the company wide health committee. I really only signed up for that because I was trying to get a water bottle and a t-shirt. And somehow I'm not even gonna lie. I do. They sent me a birthday card, a gift card at Target. I was like, I love y'all. I'm gonna be a part of this forever. So I'm like, okay, well, fine, I'm on this. But it's interesting when you say, you know, what different races are interested in, because they're all about mindful minutes and meditating and yoga. And I'm like, I ain't doing this shit. Like, I got a lot of stuff going. I ain't doing it. I don't want to. I got a lot of stuff going on. This does not calm me down because, again, we talked about how as Black people, as Black women, Black everything, we have a lot going. I can't quiet my mind right now. This is like meetings in the middle of my day.
Right.
This ain't benefiting me, but I'm here because I'm trying to get my t-shirt. So what's up? So I go through it and it's just funny, but it's like when I'm not passionate about it, but when I had my first meeting with the committee that I'm on, it was just like, no, we need to do this. It's so, you know, mental health and mental health issues. And we need to talk about diabetes. We don't need to just talk about breast cancer. Yes, it's prevalent, but hey, Black women are at higher risk for getting triple negative in breast cancer and stuff like that. And I didn't realize how passionate I was about mental and physical health. So now when I have meetings, it's not just about the free t-shirt. I'm like, hey, well, you know, the AARG is having something discussing about Black health, and this is what we're talking about it. How can I incorporate you guys as well? So I've kind of become like a liaison in between it. You can kind of tell that some people from the other group, they're okay with it, and some are not. They're uncomfortable, or they just don't like it. Them. That's how I feel. I can't say that though.
That was the cab talking.
No, that was real life.
Like, no, that's how I feel about their mindfulness. I mean, I get it. So, you know, you're entitled to your opinion, but I'm still going to come on here every single week. And, you know, if I have to be on this meeting, you're going to hear my voice because it's something y'all passionate about your yoga. I'm passionate about us not dying with the sugar. So it is what it is.
Not the sugar and the gout.
Yeah. See, but it's funny because when in the AARG group, I'll be like the sugar. I can't say that to the white folk because they don't know what it is. So I'll be like, diabetes is prevalent in the African, like, you know, it's just crazy. But I just, it's interesting. Like you said, I think this has become a hashtag and everyone is just over it, but we can't be over it because your company is not 100% white. You got to suck it up.
Right.
Yeah. So
it seems like, you know, what you're experiencing is very similar to what Shanice brought into, like, you know, the POC. Like, we're trying to cover so many things, but we need to bring it to like a head, like, okay, this is our focus right here. We're going to focus specifically on Black people because, you know, I think in May-ish, June-ish, I saw plenty of white people saying things like, you know, just because, you know, the block is blocked off because the fire trucks are here, focusing on the house that's on fire doesn't mean that our inconvenience is greater than the house that's actually on fire. And as Black people, we're considered the house that's on fire. Focus on the main issue. Okay, there's smoke because of it, and you're inconvenienced, Karen. So sorry, but like the main issue is the fact that continually we are seeing that our lives don't matter, especially and in my face this weekend in my home. That neighborhood is literally 3 miles from my neighborhood where that young man was killed. And I'm just like, I have to go to sleep. That was me. I was like, I have to go to sleep. So it doesn't seem like, it seemed that organizations are making strides, but it is very much a throwing darts at the board to see where we go and what sticks. And then they're still expecting for the people who are affected the most to lead because they don't know what to do. They're pulling people into these groups without giving them extra pay or extra acknowledgement, so to speak. They throw the word equity in there, but there's no actual equity. you're just giving extra work, and you're black-splaining to the folks who won't forget by the time they get home, or going to go home and be like, did you know, to their wife over dinner table. And that's about it.
Yeah.
So in my organization, like I said, I declined because